Hi everyone, welcome to Unit Standard 24484. In this unit standard, we are going to be looking at different child development theories, and we're going to discuss the different stages and phases of these theories so that we can have more knowledge about what a child should look like at a certain age and to help us to understand child development better. So I first want to discuss really why it's so important to learn about these theories. If you want to bake a cake, for example, you need to know what a cake looks like before you can bake the cake. So the same way, we want to develop children, but we need to know what child development is supposed to look like at a certain age. We need to know what our goal is with child development. So let's say you have a class of 4 to 5 year olds. You need to know what are they supposed to be doing. What is a child of that age supposed to be able to do in order to know if their development is on track or not. So that's really why it's really important to understand child development and to know when a child is really behind or a child is really struggling, especially with something specific. And before we can know if they struggle with something or if they are behind, we need to know what they are actually supposed to look like at a certain age. So you as an early childhood development practitioner have a responsibility to develop the children in your class. And when they are in your class and they spend time with you, that is precious time that we need to use to develop the children and to make sure that whatever we are doing is helping them to develop in all the different domains. If we look at all the different domains, we talk about the holistic perspective. So in this study, in this unit standard, you will hear a lot of theories and a lot of stages and phases, and we will also look at different theorists according to different domains. And even though we separate the theories and the domains, we still need to remember that we need to develop children as a whole. So we need to look at a child with regards to all the different domains and not just certain domains. So even if we discuss them separately, we are still using the holistic perspective in this regard. So we still acknowledge that a child needs to develop in every domain, not just certain domains. We also discuss the organismic point of view in this unit standard. So the organismic model means that we look at children developing in certain stages. So stages build upon each other. So a child, for example, sits before they can crawl, and they crawl before they can run and walk, and they walk before they can run. So that's just a simple example, but things happen in stages and they build upon each other. And I'm going to use the example of the cake again. So if we think about organismic development, we need to think about the cake immediately. So if we leave an ingredient out of the cake, then the cake will flop. So if we leave out a domain in development, or we leave out a really important part of development, that will have an influence on the child as a whole because of that one ingredient that's not there. So that's why it's so important to look at development as a whole picture and a whole child, and not just focus on specific things. But in order for us to understand it better and to know how children develop, we have to look at different domains separately. Another important thing I would like to discuss is the difference between an integrated activity and a developmentally appropriate activity. Okay, so we want activities to be both of those things. So we want activities to be developmentally appropriate as well as integrated. When we refer to integrated, that means that it's things that are working together. So all the domains need to work together. So an integrated activity would mean that it's an activity that helps all the domains to develop together or at the same time. So it's an activity where one or two or more domains are actively being developed during an activity. So it's an activity where, let's say, for example, coloring, and they are sharing crayons, then they have to use language, because when they talk to each other and they're around friends, you develop language. They develop fine motor skills because they are coloring. They develop morally and socially because they are working with their friends and they share. So it's more than one domain that is developing at the same time. So when we say integrated activity, that is what we mean. When we say developmentally appropriate, that means that that activity is appropriate for the age and the stage of the children. So it means that it's an activity that is appropriate for the age group. If we have babies, a class of babies, we can't expect them to use scissors and to cut and paste. So to cut out themselves, because that is not developmentally appropriate. We can't expect of babies to run around the jungle gym or to jump over different objects, because babies are still learning to crawl and learning to walk. They won't be able to do that. So developmentally appropriate means that it's appropriate for the age group, and integrated means that it's developing more than one domain. But we want activities to be both of those things. So that's really important. And if we look at integrated, a good example of when an activity or when something is both those things is when we let the children do free play. So free play is really important because it gives children a chance to develop all of the domains at once, because they usually are busy with a lot of things and they are actually doing things that they enjoy. You as a practitioner can always put out certain things that you want them to play with, but they still have a choice which of those things they want to play with. Sometimes have a more structured free play and to help them develop in certain areas, but still give them the chance to choose which of the options they want to play with. So free play is also a really important time to assess the children so that you can see what they enjoy, what they are good at, what they are struggling with, and also how they are interacting with their peers and how they are working in a group. Do they like being around other children? So it's a really good time to just see where a child's abilities are at and where you can step in and give more structure to the free play so that you can develop the things that needs to be more developed and it needs a little bit more attention. In this unit standard, we will be talking a lot about different stages and phases and ages of children. So yes, it's important to know at what age and what stage a child is supposed to be or supposed to be doing certain things, but it's important to remember that this is just guidelines and that it's not a rule. So if we say that around 6 months babies are supposed to be sitting, if the baby in your class is 6 months and 1 day old and they can't sit on their own, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. So these are just guidelines, and children are still very unique, and some of them develop quicker than others, and some might take a little bit longer in certain things, but that doesn't always mean that there's something wrong. This is just a guideline for us to know where a child is supposed to be at. Please also take note of the explanations of the difference between teaching and facilitation on page 11, as well as the children's rights explained on page 11 to 12. In the next training information video, we will start to unpack the different theories according to different domains. I'm really excited to share this information with you.